everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of News for Normies, where I bring you the week's important news in a short time frame. If you've got some normies in your life, hit that like button, share with your normie friends. That way we can make a more educated society, because a more educated society and a more knowledgeable society is a better one. Got a lot to talk about this week, and we're going to start off with some very sad news. This week, several celebrities passed away, starting with Malcolm Jamal Warner, best known for his role as Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, who died at the age of 54 after drowning in Costa Rica. That was last weekend as I record this. Then a couple days later, Ozzy Osbourne passed away at the age of 76 after dealing with a litany of health issues. Hulk Hogan died at age 71 from cardiac arrest. Chuck Mangione, who I actually had to look up because I didn't recognize his name, he passed away in his sleep at the age of 84. And a man by the name of Julian LaFay, known as the father of the Elder Scrolls series, died at age 59. The last three men I mentioned passed away on July 24th. Malcolm Jamal Warner died on July 20th, and Ozzy passed on July 22nd. And to kind of go back to Chuck Mangione, he was a legendary jazz musician. It's probably why I didn't really know who he was, because I'm not a huge jazz enthusiast. But very sad week for celebrities, I will say. Especially for me. I loved Ozzy Osbourne's music. Grew up listening to it, driving around with my dad anywhere we'd go. I have some great stories about his music. It was just a very sad day. I also saw Pantera on the day that Ozzy died at Riverbend Music Center in Cincinnati. And the band did an amazing tribute to the Prince of Darkness when they played the song Planet Caravan, which was originally done by Black Sabbath. I believe that Pantera did a cover of it, hence why they were kind of playing it. And it was a great show. Probably one of the best concerts I've been to. And while I enjoyed the show, I also couldn't stop thinking about Zakk Wylde and how he was feeling that day, as he had a very, very close relationship with Ozzy. Thanks to my friend Kyle, who's a very big music historian and just real big into music. I guess from what Kyle was telling me, Ozzy actually picked up Zakk Wylde as his guitar player when Zakk was 18 years old. Zakk Wylde is now 58, so Zakk spent the last half century with Ozzy. Yeah, I can't imagine how he's feeling right now, as well as obviously Ozzy's family, Sharon, Jack, Kelly, and all those who were close with him. I hope for the best for all of the families of the men that I just mentioned, and my heart goes out to them in this time of mourning for those several families. I couldn't imagine being any one of them right now. So now getting into some more, I don't want to say relevant news. That makes all that sound like it's not relevant. But so last week I talked about the Late Show with Stephen Colbert getting canceled, because cable TV and late night TV is just a dying medium. But apparently some people didn't think so, because protesters showed up outside the Paramount building to show support for the Late Show, since the company announced that it will be discontinued as of next year. They had signs that said, quote, "Colbert stays, Trump goes," end quote, and "refuse fascism." To which the latter is connected to a group called RevCom, short for Revolutionary Communism. So again, if you don't think that the Democrat Party is basically the Communist Party at this point, then there is no saving you. This is probably a bad time to kind of bring this up, but a while back I did a video on the history of communism and linked, how many of the wanted policies by the Democrat Party are borderline communism. And somebody commented on that video and said, "Oh, this is crap. You don't know what you're talking about." I think I do at this point, dude, because you have people like this showing up with signs that are directly linked to a communist group, and you have the founders of Black Lives Matter who are self-proclaimed communists. You all want the government to pay for healthcare, which is a horrible idea since the VA can't take care of, 10% of the country at this point, if that. You want government to pay for all college when most degrees are pretty much useless. You just want the government to keep pissing money away. How are you not communists at this point? Anyway, moving on. Speaking of Paramount, they signed a deal with South Park for $1.5 billion. And the first episode of the latest season was basically just a big mockery of Trump. Now, I haven't watched it because I don't have a Paramount subscription, but apparently the jokes were old and kind of bad, and apparently the whole episode did not make a lot of sense. Again, I haven't watched it. This is just things I've heard. So it seems like Matt Parker and Trey Stone were told by Paramount to mock Trump, but just kind of phoned it in. If you have seen the episode, let me know. And if I'm wrong, then I will correct myself in the next video. So, speaking of media and government spending our money, the Trump administration has now defunded NPR and PBS. The latter of the two organizations aired programs to children, such as Little Miss Hot Mess, featuring a drag queen reading children's books. They've injected BLM propaganda into Sesame Street. And like I just said, don't forget that BLM was founded by self-proclaimed communists. And they fired a whistleblower at one point for exposing the left-wing bias that the network had. If I remember correctly, they had like 87 people working for them, and 100% of them were registered Democrats. So, this is why I've also talked about in the past why government-funded media is a bad thing, because it will inevitably lead to just one side of a political ideology being represented and making everybody else look like the bad guys. Now, in 2025, Congress apportioned $535 million for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, or CPB for short, which distributes funds to many broadcast stations, including PBS and NPR. However, this money comes out to about $1.50 per American, so the money side of that is not as big of a deal, I think, as it is the political ideology behind all of it. And just to be clear, I also would not like a Republican version of NPR and PBS, because we have seen that Republicans will do the exact same kind of thing. Don't forget that in the 80s, the Reagan administration wanted to censor rap music because they didn't like it. And that was, the oh-so-great Republican president that everybody looks up to. And I hope you catch the sarcasm in my voice there. So, moving on. An off-duty Border Patrol agent was shot in New York by an illegal alien. Imagine that. Your gun laws didn't work, and because an illegal alien got a gun and then used it on a law enforcement officer. The Border Patrol agent was apparently being robbed by two men on a moped when shots were fired by both the illegal alien and the cop. The agent was taken to the hospital and will likely recover, and the would-be robber was arrested later on, after he went to the hospital for gunshot wounds. So this is interesting because we don't really see that tactic used in America for armed robbery. That's something that typically happens in countries other than the U.S. So again, it's weird how this stuff keeps happening. The Florida state government is issuing a warning to people about a new viral trend that has been labeled the door kick challenge, as you'll see here. I have to say, this is probably the stupidest thing that I've ever seen. And depending on the state you live in, you could easily be shot by the homeowner and the homeowner not be charged for anything. Again, it depends on the state you live in. Check your state laws. And obviously, adhere to the rules of gun safety. One of them being know your target and what is beyond it. And don't go just shooting rounds through the door. Obviously, you could hit another person. Bullets travel through drywall. They can go through houses, hit other people. So just don't be stupid. That's all I'm saying. If you're the homeowner or a teenager looking to get your rocks off, don't go banging on people's doors in the middle of the night. Really bad idea. Now, I think this is something I touched on a little bit last week, but more information has come out. Tulsi Gabbard has now called for the prosecution of Barack Obama for his involvement in trying to undermine the Trump campaign in 2016.
Documents that you're referencing that I released, declassified and released, spells out in great detail exactly what happens when you have some of the most powerful people in our country directly leading at the helm, President Obama and his senior-most national security cabinet, James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, and Susan Rice, and others, essentially making a very intentional decision to create this manufactured, politicized piece of intelligence with the objective of subverting the will of the American people, who in November of 2016 delivered a historic victory to President Trump, defeating Hillary Clinton. And President Obama and his team, their goal was to essentially not accept the decision of the American people and to use this manufactured, politicized intelligence as a means to enact what would become essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. You have gone into great detail over these years of what the effects of this document and this decision have resulted in. Obviously, a years-long Mueller investigation that cost taxpayers almost $40 million, 2 congressional impeachments, endless smears and attacks against not only President Trump, but his family. He had senior members of his team who were investigated, some arrested and jailed. We had heightened and increased tensions between the United States and Russia. The list goes on and on about the consequences of President Obama and his senior cabinet members politicizing intelligence once again, and I say these words very clearly, to enact what was essentially a years-long coup, subverting the will of the American people in that election in November. Now, you referenced this President's Daily Brief document that was drafted for President Obama in early December that reaffirmed what the intelligence community professionals, as you say, had been assessing for the previous 6 months leading up to the election, which was that Russia neither had the intent nor capability to essentially hack the outcome of the U.S. election. As you said, President Obama's political appointees pulled that document before it could be published, and it has not been published until we released it today. And the very next day after they pulled that document, President Obama called a National Security Council cabinet meeting to discuss how Russia interfered with the election. Again, this is the first
This
week
is
of December.
December 9th,
President
right?
Trump had already won. Correct.
This is the December 9th meeting.
That's exactly right. The December 9th meeting, we declassified and released what they call the summary of conclusions from that meeting. Then DNI James Clapper took the lead on what President Obama wanted done, and which was essentially create a document that tells us not if, but how Russia interfered with the election. President Obama delivered the conclusion that he wanted the intelligence community to reach, and directed them to find and essentially create and manufacture the intelligence to support the conclusion that President Obama wanted to deliver to the American people. Once that document was drafted, the deep state kicked into gear and did what they usually do. They started leaking this classified information out to their friends at the Washington Post and others who are working hand in glove with the deep state to lay the groundwork for the assessment that they eventually released that served as the basis, once again, for this years-long coup with the goal of trying to subvert the American people's will and usurp President Trump from being able to deliver on the mandate that the American people gave to him when they chose to elect him as president of the United States.
So on top of that, President Trump also shared an AI video of Obama being arrested, and then later flat out accused Obama of treason. The office of the former president put out a statement that essentially tried to discredit the accusations, calling them, quote, a weak attempt at distraction, end quote, from the Epstein debacle, which I kind of agree with because not much has come out lately about the whole Epstein thing. But it's also becoming more and more clear that the Obama administration tried to meddle with the Trump campaign in 2016 and they failed. So people need to be arrested for this and some actual accountability held. But again, this is government we're talking about. We'll see if it ever happens. But speaking of Epstein, because we all just can't get enough of Jeffrey Epstein, House Speaker Mike Johnson has decided to start the summer recess early as Democrats tried bringing forth an amendment to a bill that would disclose the Epstein files. When asked by a reporter if President Trump asked to delay the Epstein vote, Mike Johnson said the following.
Two questions. First is, did the president or anyone in the administration ask you to delay the resolution until after recess?
No, but I, as you all know, I speak to the president multiple times a day on a typical day, often, always. And what I know about the president's heart on this is that he agrees with everything I've said here today. He wants maximum transparency, but he's also very insistent that we do not subject people who have already been victims of unspeakable crimes to further public scrutiny. And it would be a very dangerous thing to put those people's names out or to do a release of information in a way that is haphazard where they could be easily unmasked. And so you have to be very careful about how you do that. I think we have a moral responsibility to do that. We have a moral responsibility to expose the evil of Epstein, and everybody was involved in that. Absolutely. And we're resolved to do it. But we also have an equal moral responsibility to protect the innocent. And that is a fine needle to thread. And we could all give ourselves easy political cover and come out and do something in a haphazard fashion, but I would not be able to sleep at night because I know our legal responsibility. I understand what the legal standard is, but more than that, the moral standard, okay? So we're going to do this, and we're going to do it expeditiously. We're going to do it the right way. What is popular isn't always right, and what is right isn't always popular. I had an 8th grade teacher tell me that one time. I carried it with me my whole life. We're going to do the right thing here. And the American people at the end will see that we did that in the right way and on the right timetable. Yes, sir.
So this means that Republicans can kick this can down the road until September, essentially buying time for them to figure out what they want to do. But it's apparent to everybody at this point that the more that Republicans try to shy away from this, the more people want to know what's in those files. Lastly, thanks to the PBD podcast, which I have linked down below here, this video clip seems very, very damning.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
Now, every person has the right to not incriminate themselves in court, as stated in the Fifth Amendment. However, in the court of public opinion, something like this makes both Epstein and Trump look very bad. So if that is the case, it now makes perfect sense as to why the Epstein files haven't been released and why Republicans keep pushing this off more and more. And we're not done with Jeffrey Epstein just yet, because a Florida judge named Robin L. Rosenberg has blocked the release of grand jury testimony from Epstein's trial in the mid-2000s. She claims, quote, 11th Circuit Federal Appeals Court law does not permit this court to grant the government's request. The court's hands are tied, a point the government concedes, end quote. For those that either don't know or don't remember, Jeffrey Epstein was facing charges in the state of Florida in 2005 and 2007, but was essentially given a slap on the wrist for the awful things he was doing. So this just adds more fuel to the conspiracy fire that the Trump administration and or deep state is hiding something. And finally, on the Epstein thing, the DOJ met with Ghislaine Maxwell this week to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, she was given a, quote, limited form of immunity, end quote, before she agreed to speak with the Department of Justice. She was questioned about 100 people in relation to Epstein. So we'll see where that goes. But it's funny that this story dropped on a Friday, since most people forget about the news over the weekend. It's kind of why I do this show, because, you know, some stuff happens on Fridays that is pretty important, like this, and I just don't want people to forget about it. So, again, if you have normies in your life, share this with them, because I guarantee you they have no idea about this at all. So now that we've ended the Epstein segment here, we're going to move on to some other stuff. Apparently, the U.S. will now be charging a $250 visa integrity fee for all foreign people who wish to come to the country. However, those who don't overstay their visas will get their money reimbursed. This was a provision included in the big, beautiful bill that was signed into law on July 4th, and seems to be another way of cutting down on illegal immigration / overstaying of visas. Kind of makes sense, you know. If you know about the grocery store chain Aldi, you know about the cart situation there. For those that don't know about Aldi, when you go to their store to get a cart to load your groceries up with, you got to put a quarter in the little lock on the handle. It unlocks the chain, and then you can take it into the store. Go in, do your grocery shopping. When you're done, put the cart back in the thing, put the little lock back in the thing, and then you get your quarter back. So, you know, it's amazing how many less shopping carts are left in the parking lot at Aldi grocery stores compared to, say, I don't know, Walmart, because Walmart is just a trash institution at this point. But yeah, kind of makes sense if you think about it like that. But speaking of illegal immigration, Democrat Representative Yvette Clarke from Brooklyn, New York, said the quiet part out loud.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn. I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes. And those members could clearly fit here.
It's funny to me how Democrats are just blatantly saying the things that Republicans have been saying for a long time now. Democrats bring in illegal aliens, they get counted in the census, and then Democrat areas get more seats in Congress, thus expanding their power in DC and therefore over your life. I mean, that's just how it works, and it kind of disproves people's, conspiracy theory. Oh, illegal aliens are voting in our elections. Yes, there have been cases where that has happened, but this is exactly why we need to cut down on illegal immigration, because people that are not citizens of this country are getting power to change how things happen. I guess that's the easiest way to explain it. This one is just kind of funny. President Trump has threatened the Washington Commanders and has demanded the team return to the name Redskins. Earlier this year, a deal was made to build a new football stadium in D.C. for the football team, but Trump has threatened to withhold funding for it if the team does not change the name back to the Washington Redskins. I imagine a lot of blue hairs on X are going crazy over this one. I don't watch football. I don't watch a lot of professional sports. I think sports are the modern day circuses that they used to have in Rome. If you know about the bread and circuses, you understand where I'm getting at. And I think that if more people paid attention to the news and what's going on in our country and not what their stupid sports ball team is doing every week, then again, we wouldn't have so many shitty politicians in office going against the wishes of the American people. Rant over. Now this one, since I'm more of a gun guy than anything else, this one is sad, but also kind of a told you so at the same time. An airman was killed by a Sig Sauer pistol, causing Air Force Global Strike Command to pause the use of the Sig M18 handgun at this time. The death of the airman took place at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming, causing a bit of an uproar in the firearms industry yet again. For those that don't know, SIG has faced some public and legal scrutiny over the last few years because of their P320 line of handguns, which the M18 is based on. SIG got a huge contract with the U.S. military to make new sidearms for the armed forces, and the M18 is based off of the SIG P320. The company first faced issues when people claimed the drop safety mechanism in the gun was faulty, meaning that the gun could fire if it was accidentally dropped while loaded, which is a pretty big deal. Shit happens. People knock something off a desk. Your cat is an asshole and starts scooting it and, throws it off the table. Or in a very real type of scenario, you have military members that are in combat, an explosion goes off near somebody, knocks them on their ass, and then boom, gun goes off. They've just accidentally shot themselves in the leg without pulling the trigger. Not saying that has happened, but it theoretically could. Additionally, there have been many videos posted on social media of law enforcement officers being shot in the leg by their own Sig Sauer pistol when the gun was simply in the holster. If I remember right, there was one where a police officer pulled somebody over, going through the whole routine, license and registration, simply standing outside the car and hand nowhere near the gun, and boom, it goes off. So, Sig Sauer has essentially tried to cover this stuff up in the past, but it seems like they won't be able to this time, as seen in their statement here. You can pause the video if you want to read this. Finally, I typically don't cover, celebrity news when it's like gossip type stuff. But this one is just kind of funny to me, and I think should be addressed because of the person involved. Candace Owens is being sued by French President Emmanuel Macron because Candace has repeatedly claimed that Macron's wife was born a man. While I find this kind of stuff funny and mostly background noise, it makes you wonder why the French president is so concerned with a talking head here in the United States. And also, if these very, liberal European countries are okay with, the transgender stuff, then why is he making a big stink about this? It really makes you wonder. And finally, just to make it clear, I think Candace Owens is an idiot with a loud mouth, as she has flat out told people to get dishonorably discharged from the military, which is a serious felony.
LG19 writes, serious question, will there be jobs or community military members can join when I get a dishonorable discharge for not contributing to delete people or my body for the interests of a certain foreign nation benefit? I love this question. I do believe that if war in Iran is on the agenda, and that appears so, get dishonorably discharged. Who cares? Who cares? Why should you go die in a foreign land? You now have the benefit of 2020. You can see, think about those men and those women who died because they were pitched that they were serving their country because there were weapons of mass destruction, right? They were serving their country because the Taliban, they were serving their country, whatever, and these people gave up their lives. And ask yourselves, for what? And the answer to that question is for the elites. They're like toy soldiers. And I would have said a few weeks ago that Trump would never do that to you. He would never just throw you into an Israeli war. But right now, our planes are flying in the sky, and things are going nuclear. So I don't have that confidence anymore. And I'm comfortable with people being dishonorably discharged because the dishonor has come from our politicians. The dishonor has come from our politicians who routinely lie in our faces and are willing to let us die to serve their financial interests. So why don't they dishonorably discharge themselves from public office?
Therefore, I would encourage you not to listen to Candace Owens, even if she is right about Brigitte Macron being a man. People could throw stuff at the wall and eventually something's going to stick. It doesn't mean that they're right about everything. So, and again, that's why I put my sources in the videos here. That way, you can see where I'm coming from with this stuff. And if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself, as I've done in the past. So that's all I've got for this week. Take care. Hug your loved ones, because you never know when the last day could come for any of us. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all next time. Thank you.